Hey guys, what's up? This is Nick Bruner here from Preview Animation Studios, and in this tutorial we're going to learn how to create this scene that you can see right here in front of you. It's a cool, simple picture frame type of scene. I was going for photorealism on this scene, so I think it's a pretty nice result, and I wanted to make a tutorial out of it for you. So yeah, in this tutorial, you're going to learn how to create this scene right here. So let's go ahead and jump inside. Alright, so this is the final scene that you can see right here. It's pretty simple. We used a cloth simulator to drop these onto a plane. You can see there's a couple of them back there. And then we have a simple backdrop, which is also a cloth, being applied to this object right here to make it bend. And then, we got our basic key light, fill light, lighting setup, and wood floor, and that's pretty much it. So it's a pretty simple scene, but it is still a pretty easy scene to create. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump into it and get into the tutorial. Alright, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take this default cube here and we're going to go ahead and delete it and replace it with a plane. This is going to be our wood floor here, also our collision object. So let's go ahead and scale it up by 8. So just hit S, then 8, and that'll scale it up to the size of the grid floor, which is plenty of space for this scene. And yeah, that's pretty much it. We don't need to add in tons of vertices and stuff, because you don't need that when you do collision objects. So we're just going to go to the modifier, or the physics panel here, and gonna go ahead and check collision, and that's all you need to do. Just check that and it'll be good to go. Alright, next let's go ahead and set up the backdrop where the object is going to be. So I'm just going to delete this lamp because we don't need that in this scene. And go ahead and add in a cylinder. So we're going to create that pole that you saw in the finished result. We're going to create that pole so the blanket can hang over it as a backdrop. So we'll just add in some more vertices here. It doesn't really matter. I'm just going to set that to 40, smooth shading, and it's good. Alright, so rotate it, make it a little bit smaller, and then scale out along the X to a little bit longer than the actual scene. Just scale that down a little bit more. Yeah, that's good. You basically just need a pole type object. And then yeah, just go ahead and move that up a little bit more, and then obviously back a little bit. I didn't go completely back, probably around in there is good. Maybe a little bit closer. Okay. Alright, so let's go ahead and drop the sheet onto the background. So yeah, go ahead and add in a plane, and we're going to scale that up to fit almost the entire pole, but not completely. So about right there is good. Okay, and we're just going to move it up like that. And also, we're going to move it so that little origin point is pretty much in the middle of the pole, so that way it folds evenly once it comes down. And just hit period there to go to my object. And as well as that, it's going to need a lot more vertices so it can bend. So I'm going to hit subdivide, and then I'm going to go to the number of cuts here in my toolbar. And I believe I used around 40. Maybe we'll just go with 50. Just so it bends properly and it's not all stiff because it doesn't have enough vertices. Okay. Okay, so we've got that in place. This also needs to be a collision object. And yes, this also needs to be a collision object. And yeah, so go ahead and select your cloth object and hit cloth. There's not a lot to it. It's pretty easy. I usually don't mess with any of that. I just turn up the self-collision quality pretty high. And you want that so the cloth doesn't collide with itself. So that's very important that you do that. And all the rest of this, yeah, you don't need. Yeah, so the cloth cache is how long you want the animation to be. Since this is going to be a still shot, we just need enough frames for the cloth to come down all the way. So I think about 150 frames should be enough time for the cloth to kind of settle down once it's bended. And yeah, so to see this in the viewport, all you have to do is hit Alt-A. And it's a little bit laggy. That's because it's working with all those vertices. So yeah, I'll probably just bake this out so it'll go a little bit faster. So, oh yes, I normally set my cloth presets to be cotton. Actually, in this case, I used silk kind of material on all of the cloths. But you can set whatever preset you want. If you're working with a denim background. But yeah, I just set it to silk and it kind of changes minute settings. But yeah, so let's go ahead and hit bake. Wait for that to get to 100. And then we'll be able to use the cloth. Alright, so let's just wait for this to go. Alright, so it's finished baking, and it didn't take too long. And now we got an animation to play off of this. And ta-da! It is all good to go. Now, you can see a little bit of a problem here. May have to rebake. I didn't evenly put the cloth on the background. I mean, which is okay, because in the final result, you don't even see the bottom of the cloth, because we have those other cloths sitting there. So I'm just gonna leave it for this tutorial. You guys can mess with it all you want. In fact, I recommend that you get it how you like, definitely. And that should all be good. Okay, so I hit smooth shading to smooth it out. And as well as that, I'm going to add in a subdivision modifier at about level 1. I think level 1 is fine. Yeah. Don't need too many vertices. And that is good. Okay, so that is the background. You know what I can actually do? Since if you like how your cloth object simulated out, you hit apply on the cloth simulator, and now that is stuck in stone. Okay, so I'm just gonna hit Control Alt Shift C and just recenter this origin. If I want to scale it differently, it won't be weird having the origin point up there. And I'm probably just gonna rotate this like that, because that side turned out a little bit nicer and it's actually touching the ground. And you can see that since we set this to be a collision object too, not just for the cloths up here that we'll do, it was also for this backdrop here, because you can see that it touches the floor but it doesn't actually go through. So that collision modifier was for all the cloths in the scene. Okay, so that is pretty much it for the backdrop. We'll get into materials later. Let's do the other 3 cloths right now. So it's basically the same thing, just adding in a plane. I'll probably scale it down just a little bit. And then the only other thing that you do is you want to make it long and maybe a little bit thicker too. So basically get a rectangle type of shape, and that should be good. Okay, so go ahead and rotate it like that. Maybe just add in a little bit more thickness. This scene is actually a pretty older scene. This was back when I was working on a Mac Mini. I created this scene, so it's pretty old, so I had to actually teach myself again how I did most of this. So I'm hoping that I'm doing everything correctly here, because this was an older scene, but it actually turned out pretty nice. So yeah. Alright, again, we're gonna subdivide it and add in more vertices. So probably about 30. Yeah, that should be good. Alright, so 30 vertices probably for all of these cloths. And then, yeah, we just hit the cloth simulator. Again, silk. Yeah, I mean, you can see it changes that spring value. It goes from a 5 to a 0. So it does change settings a little bit. Alright, this one I'm going to have out. I'm going to have the animation bake a little bit more, just so we have enough time for the cloth to, you know, kind of settle down into the floor. So you're going to need more frames to work with, so I'm probably just going to use 200. That should be good. And again, self-collision. Just turn the quality up to 7. This quality up to 7. Not really sure. Okay. Alright, so I've always changed this quality too, but I never quite understood what it was. That just helps with the overall quality of the simulation. So go ahead and turn that to higher or lower depending on your type of computer, because it says that higher is better quality but slower. So, okay. Enough talk. Alright, so, yes, you also want to position the cloth where you want it to fall. You can always move it again later, but it's better to have it fall where it is, because if you move it later, it may not look like it fell there, if that makes any sense. You know, it's like you drop something, but then you kind of move it, and it looks like it didn't actually drop there. So I don't know if that made any sense, but you pretty much want to just set it where you want it to fall, and that'll be good. Alright, so if we hit Alt A right now, we can kind of preview how it's going to turn out. And yeah, it kind of squishes up at first, but pretty sure it kind of comes back out once it's done all of that. It looks like it's gonna work, so I'm gonna go ahead and bake this out again. So yep, I'll be back once this is done. So go ahead and hit bake, and yep, be back once this is done. Alright, so it's finished, and let's go ahead and look at this piece. Hopefully it did it right. Cool. It did. And see, you want to have enough time for it to, you know, kind of unravel. We probably should have added in more frames, but it's not too bad. One thing though, and I'll rebake, it really folded up a lot. See, again, it's been a while since I've done this scene, so I can't remember, you know, if I kind of rotated it or something first. But I kind of folded up a lot, so it's not as thick. Yeah, so maybe we can add in. So let me just free the bake real quick. And maybe let's just add in some more cloth. Okay. Just check the vertices too. Make sure we still have enough. Make an object bigger, you're gonna lose the amount of vertices, you know, compared to small. So I think we're gonna do that, and then I think I'm gonna maybe not bring it as high so it doesn't bounce so hard or anything like that. And then maybe just rotate it a little bit like that. Alright, let's go ahead and try that. Alright, so it's finished. Let's go ahead and look at it. Ah, that's a little bit better. Alright, it kind of spread out, but there's that little bunch right there that we can kind of work with. Okay, that's good. Alright, so yeah, find where you like how it's laying out. I think rather than there, it's better to kind of view it with a subdivision subsurf, just so you can see how the final cloth looks. So yeah, then I would probably go to about there. Maybe around in there. I don't know, if you can't get your cloth simulator how you like it, if it's not laying right, you can definitely grab these source files. Right now all my source files are going up on blend swap, so you can check them out there. If you don't know what blend swap is, it's the top free 3D model place where you can go and you can download other Blender users models and scenes for free. So yeah, definitely check them out if you haven't already. But the source files will be up there, and it's gonna be the raw scene that I showed you at the beginning. Okay, so I'm just gonna leave it here. So go ahead and apply it. You can also, once you've applied it, again, just recenter the origin, Control Shift C. You can kind of scale up the cloth up and down if you want, and then you can also, you know, go proportional editing and, you know, kind of move it down a little bit more and whatnot. I guess it's a little tedious, but I recommend doing that if it didn't turn out right. Alright, it's going through the floor a little bit, which is kind of weird. I'm just going to bring that up about there. Don't want too much of a gap. It's kind of tilted there. That's our problem. Just kind of straighten that out. Bring that back down. A little shadow underneath the blanket is good too. Alright, that's good. Okay, so pretty much use that same setup that we did for the cloth on the other three. Just adding in a cloth modifier and just dropping it onto the plane. I recommend not duplicating that, just because you get the same kind of looking blanket, and you could get a little bit of a better result if you actually drop another cloth onto this one. So it's kind of like, you know, this cloth dropped onto this cloth, so it looks a little bit better. Totally up to you, but that's what I would recommend that you do, is just use those same settings with the plane. Rotate along the X, scale it up along the Z, and along the X, and then just going and subdividing it, setting the amount to 30, I believe it was, moving it up, placing where you want it to fall, giving a slight angle. Maybe try going the other way this time with the angling, but maybe not as much rotation. Then again, cloth, reapply the silk preset. I'm just gonna leave that at 250. Self collision, minimum of 7, and that quality to 10. go ahead and save it and bake. That's pretty much all I had to do. So yeah, I'm gonna do the other two cloths, this one and then the other one that is in front of the camera, and then I'll come back. Okay, so I found a simpler way of doing things instead of having to render out or simulate out a third cloth. You could just choose from either of these and you can just duplicate it. This is one that you actually can duplicate, and then maybe just, you know, turn it the other way. This is just for depth of field with the camera, so you don't have to have this. I had it, and I thought it worked out pretty nicely. So that's pretty much it for the cloth part. That's pretty much what I did. Obviously the cloths don't look the same as my finished scene. It's always going to be different, but I definitely recommend you get the cloths how you want, because that really does make up the scene, having those cloths in the shot. So get those all settled and that'll be good. Alright, so these are all good to go. And yeah, the only other thing that we need to do is just we need to make a little picture frame here. It's pretty easy. That's basically just a cube, just scaled up a little bit and out along the X, maybe like that, and scale in along the Y, give a little bit of thickness to it. Okay, and then basically you're going to take this, go into face select mode, select this face, going to hit E, and then you're going to click to exit out of it, so that then you can scale it. Make sure proportional editing is turned off, and you can scale it in by holding Control to 1, or if you want a little bit of a thinner frame, you can do it manually. And yeah, probably gonna go in around there. Okay, and then you're going to extrude that along the Y, right to the back in there. Alright, now this face is going to become our picture, so hit P to separate it, because yeah, so then we have our frame and we have our picture. Okay, so let's go ahead and move these to the first layer, and yeah, so I had it rotated like that. Just rotated back a little bit as well. Then just resting on that floor like that. It's a little bit crooked. Let's go into front view. It's gonna hide everything else here. Say Control I, and I'm just gonna hide everything else. Okay. Now I can see it. Alright, so just bring that down. This is kind of tedious right here, but you don't want the picture frame looking like it's flying, you know. Alright, that's pretty good. Alright, go ahead and bring back everything. I'm just gonna scale these cloths up a little bit more. They look a little rink-a-dink. Like, they're not big enough or something. That should be good. Alright, let's go ahead and set up our camera right now. So go into front view and then Control Alt numpad 0. Alright, so that is pretty much actually where we're gonna put it. I'm just gonna rotate that along the Z and give a little more of a turn to it. Scale it down just a little bit more. Just kind of place it there, off to the left a little bit more. And that's pretty much the exact same shot that I have for my final one. Okay, cool. Let's go ahead and get the composition for the camera right here. Alright. Maybe just come down a little bit. Okay. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Okay. So let's go ahead and get into some of the camera presets here real quick. Obviously, we're just going to set the depth of field right to that frame, or you can manually select it by name. I'm just going to use f-stop at about 2 so we have a nice depth of field with this cloth. And other than lighting, I think that is it. Lighting and materials, and then compositing. Okay, so lighting. We're going to black out everything else. We're going to add in some physical lights here. So a plane, rotated along the X, scaled up a little bit, and then scaled out. And then, yes, okay. So we're just going to move this up a little bit more, and then we're going to point it down at the scene. Okay. Then we're just going to rotate it about there. Yeah, okay. So rotate it about like that. Alright, and that's going to be our key light. So go ahead and hit emission. And the energy value is going to be at 15 with a little bit of orange to it. Okay. So you can kind of see how that looks right now in viewport. And then we're going to go ahead and duplicate that. This is going to be our fill light. Okay, and the fill light is going to be at an energy value of 3. So pretty soft. And yep. That is pretty good. Cool. Alright, so let's go ahead and get into materials now. So the first material, the easiest, is the cloth material. And you can set the color of the material to whatever you want, but it's actually going to be the velvet material, which not a lot of people use. That's pretty much for blanket type things, I believe. That's the only time I've ever used it. And yeah, we're going to leave the sigma at 1, and then it's just whatever kind of color you like. So I know my final result, I went for more of a dark blue. This time I'm going to go for a little bit of a more baby blue type thing. And yeah, you can do whatever kind of color you want. Completely up to you. So I'm just going to name this one cloth. And then go ahead and select all of our cloths here. Hit Control L and materials. You can set the viewport to that color if you want. Right, and then next up is the frame, the rim of the frame. So that's just going to be a glossy material. There we go. Glossy at about 0.1. And yep, that's it. Okay. Now we're going to select our picture, hit new. We're also going to, you don't need to hop into the UV editor right now. All you have to do is go U and project view bounds, and it's already set up. So that makes it so we can actually see the picture in the viewport when we go Alt-Z. And yeah, it just helps UV unwrapping it there. So we're just going to add in image texture. I chose from one of my render files here. I've made a lot of renders. Yeah. Yeah, it's it's pretty much whatever picture you want. Just something like this one. A little bit of a preview here for my upcoming film, The Great Outdoors, coming this summer. So you can look for it then. It's a bunch of different nature scenes that I've created, compiled into a little bit of a short film. So you can check for that later. And that is pretty much it. That's everything except the wood floor, which really does make up the scene once you get it done. But you can see the nice silk cloth, and yeah. Okay. Right. This picture here doesn't look like it. Kind of look a little off. Yeah, like it kind of looks a little crooked from the actual frame. I don't know. Add whatever picture you want. Okay. So the wood floor. So this is pretty easy too. I'm just going to open up the node editor for this one. Oops. Node editor. Okay. So it is a wood floor texture. So let's go ahead and first add in the wood texture. So I'm going to go image texture, go to the woods, and I believe I got this off of CG Textures. But again, you can grab the source file and get the texture from there. So I'm just going to go ahead and open that up. And I'm just going to UV unwrap it real quick. So wood texture, project from view bounds. And we want to make the size here, sorry, don't scale it up, scale it only X. That'll add in more slats. So look at it through the camera and kind of determine, you know, how big you want the slats to look. So maybe 1.3. Just hit SX, then 1.3. Yeah, I think that's good. You know, the size of the wood tiles, you know, kind of needs to be proportionate to the frame. You know, if that makes any sense. Just the scaling of things needs to be right. Okay, so it's the basic setup of mix shader with a glossy and a bump map. So yeah. So mix shader, glossy shader, plug those two in together. Bringing the color of this to kind of a light gray type of coloring, so there's not as much. And then we're going to go ahead and make the roughness a little bit sharper. Okay. And then for the bump mapping, we're going to be adding in a mix shader. Then we're going to set the color into the top color input like that. Set the type to add. Make sure this is completely white. And then we're going to plug that into the displacement. So now you can see it's kind of all speckledy. And now it's got displacement. Yep, that is that's pretty much it. So yeah, let's go ahead and look at this here. And that picture is bothering me. I don't know why it's rotated weird. Anyway. You know what? I'm just gonna fix that because it's bothering me. So you can just hit X or E to extrude, and just bring it forward a little bit. Then again, hit P, separate by selection, and then just re-add in that. Again. Oh, you know what it might have been is the UV unwrapping. It made it look a little bit weird. Okay, let me just project from view bounds. Yeah, that's what did it. Okay. So you're gonna want to go U unwrap for that. Okay. And then yeah. And then of course it's upside down. Alright, so just rotate that like that. And now it's backwards. Okay. Right. Okay. So, how are you guys doing? is not working. Okay. You know what? I am just gonna not fidget with it anymore. I think that that's good. It was just bothering me with the UV unwrapping. There we go. It's not normally that hard. Okay. I just messed up on the UV unwrapping for it. Okay. But that is pretty much it. So let's go ahead and preview it before we render, just to make sure everything looks decent. And yeah, it does. So I'm just gonna scale that down a little bit more so we get some more ruffles. And you can just move stuff and just push and pull. And, yeah. Okay. Alright, so enough fidgeting. Just gonna move that down. Let's move that away from that one. Just a little bit. Maybe set the depth of field to be a little bit stronger. The lower you make the f-stop value, the greater the depth of field will be. Okay, that is it. So let's go ahead and get into the rendering presets. So just gonna render at 1080p there. And for the number of samples, because it's glossy, it's gonna take a little bit more. So I use 400 for my final. And that cleared it up pretty fast. Also full global illumination, so it lights everything correctly. Then no caustic, so we don't get fireflies, and the rest is all good to go. Okay, so let me just put that down a little bit more. There we go. Okay, so just gonna hit render here. And I'll be back once this is done, and we can get into the compositing. And then this tutorial is over. Alright, so it's finished. Didn't take very long. And yeah, it's ready for compositing. We can just check the brightness on this. Something that I'm trying to do a little more often, just kind of see where my hotspots are. So yeah, I figured the hotspot was going to be the light catching the glossy on that frame. So that's the only time it really peaks. So yeah, that's a pretty good readout. Alright, so let's hop to the compositor. Control left arrow and control up arrow. Alright, so use nodes, backdrop, and we're good to go. So if you hit control shift, then left click on the node, it automatically adds in a viewer node. A little tip there for you. And if you hit V, you can scale the background out. Alright. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to add in the color balance node. So you can change the coloring on this a little bit more. Go to the gain, and we're pretty much just going to set this to be a little bit more orange. Actually, you know what? I think we set that to blue, and this to kind of be a little bit more orangey. Yeah. We can adjust brightness later. You pretty much just want to get colors right. I think that looks pretty nice. You know, it's kind of very slight, but it just gives that little bit of extra detail that makes a scene look good. Alright. Yeah, I'm just gonna add a little more color pop to this scene too. Maybe not just a little bit. 0.05. That should be good. Alright, Then speaking of brightness, go ahead and add in RGB curve node. And then just pop that up a little bit. Not too much. Just a little bit there. That should be good. So you can see what we've done so far. It's very slight. But you know, it gives that little bit of extra detail. Okay. So next I'm going to try a glow node just to add in a nice slight glow. So choose fog glow, size all the way up, and then let's try, we can start at about 0.6 because this is completely white. The whitest areas are going to have the most glow. So maybe 0.9, maybe even past the 1. Yeah, you just want a nice light shing type of effect. Yep. Okay. That's pretty good. It's not too hot. Maybe 1.6, 1.7. That should be good. Okay. Alright, and then obviously the last thing that I'm going to add in. Oh, before that, just add in a sharpen node. Set that to about 0.05. Just sharpens the scene up a little bit more, maybe 0.01. Very slightly. You can see how it actually, yeah. Just, okay. Oh, that's weird. Never mind. Kind of messing up the picture there a little bit. It's still pretty clear without it. Alright, so distort, lens distortion. Add in a little bit of chromatic aberration. It's a hard word to say. Aberration. I don't even know if I'm saying it right. Anyway, very low amount. And it's a little high, maybe 0.003. That's good. All right, vignette time. All right, so I'm just gonna speed through this real quick because I've pretty much explained it before. I'll go back through and re-explain it. A lot of people have different ways of adding in a vignette, like I've said before. But you know, I've got my way. This is how I've always learned how to do a vignette too. So, yeah, maybe a little bit bigger of a vignette. And then, usually once I add a vignette, I have to brighten the shot up a little bit more. But it still maintains that nice vignette. Okay, so I'll just walk you through this real quick. I add in a lens distortion at 1, which you can see. It's a composite, so it makes it like a fisheye. Then you add in a math node at greater than, and that's basically going to tell Blender to make the rendered area white and all the rest black. So then to blur out those edges, you'd add in a blur node. And I choose X because that goes a little bit more to the edges than Y does. So I choose X all the time. And the lower you make this, the more intense it's going to be on the edges. So I found through lots of experimentation that 30 was always the best. So you make it 30 by 30. And then you mix the original scene in with the vignette with a mix node set to multiply. And the lower you make this factor amount, the greater the vignette will be. So I just plug that into the composite so it renders out all of these nodes. And that is it. So that is your final node setup. Okay. So that is pretty much it. So we started started with this render, taking it through the compositor to bring us this final result. So, thank you everyone for watching. That is the end of the tutorial. I hope that you liked it, and I hope that you learned something from it. You can use this to promote any kind of anything. Obviously, I use this to promote my film coming this summer. You can use this as a marketing thing. You can use it as a family memorabilia. Whatever you want. It's completely up to you. But it's a simple scene. But yeah, it's a nice scene. Like I said, to maybe promote something. But that is it. So thank you for watching. If you want more tutorials, which I will be putting out a lot more, go ahead and subscribe. And yeah, I'll do Facebook page, Twitter, all that cool social stuff. And yep, thanks for spending some time with me at this tutorial. So thanks for watching, and have an awesome day. I'll see you in the next one.